Hi, I'm Anne McElhinney.
And I'm Phelim McAleer.
And welcome to the Anne and Phelim Scoop. I was going to say Daily Virus, it's not the Daily Virus, it's just the Anne and Phelim Scoop. And it is week 32. Week 32 of the 2-week flatten the curve lockdown. That's 8 months, by the way, for those of you who can't divide by 4.
I want to say hello to all you non-essentials out there. From these non-essentials to your non-essentials. 32 weeks into the lockdown of the non-essentials. It's wonderful. We have a society now that divides us into essentials and non-essentials.
And our week, the thing that strikes me today that's sort of momentous is that the next scoop from this scoop will be the day after the election. And it's going to be a slightly different scoop. We're going to be coming to you from a secret location. We're not revealing just yet. But we're coming to you from a secret location, and we will be talking to you, the day after the election. So looking forward to that.
The day after the election, one day after the election, and I would say 4 weeks before we have a result.
Oh, God. Okay, well, that's your prediction, right?
No, it's not. It's my joke. But it's kind of one of those jokes that may not be that funny.
No, may not be that
4
funny.
weeks after the election. So Obamagate. Our movie is out. We are now over 300,000 views. By the time you read this, hopefully it's more than that. Time you see this.
And please share, and please tell people about it.
Where would they go?
Obamagatemovie.com. Am I right, Yvonne? Obamagatemovie.com. Go to Obama. And by the way, people have written some really nice reviews, and here's a few of them that we just looked at. Gordon, Chrissy.
First of all, we have to tell people what Obamagate movie
job.
is.
Okay.
Tell them what the Obamagate movie is, Anne.
Go, Phelim.
No, you tell them.
Phelim wrote Obamagate movie.
Along with Brian Godawa. So it is the verbatim testimony, the verbatim texts, the verbatim tweets, the verbatim congressional testimony under oath of Strzok, Page, Comey, Brennan, Loretta Lynch, you name it, all the cabal, all the upper echelons of the FBI, and the deep state plot to undermine Trump, the candidate Trump, and the President Trump. And it's in their own words, and so it's Strzok and Page with their affair. It's Strzok and Page with their attempt to undermine candidate Trump. It's Comey with his attempt to undermine candidate Trump.
It's entertaining. It's frightening. It's all true, and it's all in their own words. And people are beginning, like a lot of people, as Phelim says, more than almost 500,000 people have watched already. Gordon Christie saying, awesome job putting it into real-time context of the bias at the FBI. Carl Madison, like I have been saying for 4 years, this was a bona fide silent coup attempt. This was treason by definition, yet the swamp covered for each other, including the fake news. Herv said, such a great film, thanks, so well done. I wasn't sure what to expect, but it was truly engaging and clarifying. Pamela Smith, well done. Tweet this out to as many people in America can see it. Joshua Johnson, awesome, amazing, and unfortunately hilarious. Hopefully these corrupt idiots will face justice here on Earth.
Those are the comments on YouTube. And, of course, big tech has been doing its best to suppress this film because they don't want the truth out there. So Instagram have been blocking the Obamagate hashtag. Twitter have been suppressing it by basically putting the Obamagate hashtag into the memory hole. Facebook won't allow us to advertise. Twitter won't allow us to advertise, but they'll allow Borat, which is a deeply political movie, to advertise.
Of course.
So please share this. Get this out, send it out to your email list.
And it's free.
It's free. It's on YouTube. Obamagatemovie.com. That's Obamagatemovie.com.
And by the way, it was funded by how many? 2,000 or 3,000 people, just regular people from the public who just came along and helped us out do this.
And we'll be shouting out. We know that we said to many of the funders that we will be shouting out your name on the Anne Phelim Scoop.
And we will be
at the end. So don't forget to listen to the end.
And by the way, I also want to mention that Judicial Watch came on as co-producers of this film, and we are so grateful for them. And thank you so much for Tom Fitton. Please give him a shout out if you're out there in the Twitterverse. But today
What's in the show today?
What's in the show today? Well, because we're 1 week away from the election, we thought we would look at 2 issues that are up for a decision by the public, and we would just go through the facts with those two issues.
How each candidate is looking at them and is going to treat them, and there's
a big difference, huge difference.
Yeah. So then we have from CEO to crack pipe. From stripper girlfriend to whoring out the family name.
Oh,
we bring.
Yep.
We bring you the latest of the Hunter Biden story with the journalist who has access to his imprisoned business partner's email. Quite a story.
And we have a fabulous, great, entitled Hollywood story that you won't believe. Why a leading Hollywood creator says she left ABC And a very brilliant reason, actually, and how the media think it's an empowering thing that she did.
Despite the fact it was the most petty thing I've ever heard. But anyway, and Leslie Stahl, me, and The Truth, My Crazy Times, with the CBS 60 Minutes presenter.
And Crazy California. Wait till you hear what they've decided to do with Thanksgiving.
And in the wake of the murder of a French teacher by an Islamist extremist, NPR looks at freedom of speech in France, and their piece is even worse than you would think.
And we review Transplant, a hospital procedural on NBC, and The Missing, which is on Amazon Prime. And we have a great comment from last week's show, and we have our shout-outs.
Yes.
So we're going to start, by the way, at looking at two issues on which the candidates couldn't be more divided. And both of these issues are issues that we have spent an enormous amount of time. The first one is fracking. We made a documentary called Frack Nation, and we travelled all around the country and around the world, by the way, to find out the truth about fracking. But in the last debate, we got a lot of clarity from Joe Biden and Trump about their positions and their relative positions on this fracking issue.
Well, I would argue we didn't actually, in the sense that Joe Biden basically lied.
Let's have a listen to that.
Yeah.
And what about fracking?
All right, let me allow Vice President Biden to respond.
I never said I oppose fracking.
You said it on tape.
I did show the tape.
Talk about issuing a challenge that was so easy to meet. So this is MRC did this, the wonderful people at the Media Research Centre. But let's play that tape.
Would there be any place for fossil fuels, including coal and fracking, in a Biden administration?
No, we would work it out. We would make sure it's eliminated and no more subsidies for either one of those.
I guarantee we're going to end fossil fuel. No new fracking. And I'd gradually move away from fracking.
What about, say, stopping fracking and stopping pipeline infrastructure?
Exactly. They want to do the same thing I want to do. They want to phase out fossil fuels, and we're going to phase out fossil fuels.
So, well, he couldn't have made it more clear.
Yeah, I mean, he couldn't have made it more clear that he's a liar, basically, and that he will say anything to get elected. I mean, the charitable explanation for it is he doesn't remember saying, I'm going to ban fracking. The uncharitable explanation is that he does remember and that he's lying. I mean, this thing of fact-checking the candidates and Trump being a liar, like Biden the lies came tripping out of him as easy as pie.
So the other issue that is a big issue in the election is the issue of abortion, and the candidates actually could not be more divided. They could not be more different approaches. We know an awful lot about the abortion issue, kind of by accident in a way, really, because of the fact that Phelim happened upon the Gosnell trial when he was in Philadelphia, and sat in the court and heard the most extraordinary evidence about the truth about abortion, by the way, and what is legal in America that we didn't know about. And that was the main reason, actually, that we decided to make the Gosnell movie.
And write the Gosnell book.
And write the Gosnell book. So it's worth let's watch just this one section that tells you what is legal in America already.
Obviously we made the movie, and this is a dramatized version. This is the good abortion doctor. So let's explain. So the prosecution had a quandary that abortion is a pretty ugly, brutal procedure. And they didn't want the jury to find out about abortion and say, well, that it's an ugly procedure, so maybe Gosnell was just a little bit uglier. They wanted to distinguish between a good abortion and murder. And so they brought in this so-called good abortionist to explain to the jury just what a good abortion doctor could do. And it really backfired on them. And this exchange that we've dramatized here is almost verbatim from the actual trial transcript. Let's hear the good abortionist being questioned by Gosnell's defense lawyer.
So when you inject the fetus, do you put the needle here?
No.
Here?
Yes.
Right there. And that stops the heart.
That's correct.
And then you use forceps. You use these and you reach up in there and you grab a hold of an arm or a leg or whatever and you pull on it until it comes out or comes off. Correct?
That's correct. But with larger fetuses, they remain intact.
Of course, because the head's bigger. Makes it more difficult. What do you do then?
We use a machine to suction out the gray matter.
The gray matter, the brains. So you suction out the brains, and then what happens?
Then the skull collapses and the fetus can be removed.
Right. What would you do if the baby was out and it was breathing?
We would issue comfort care.
Comfort care. Can you define that for us?
That's keeping the fetus warm and comfortable. Eventually, it will pass.
Eventually, it would pass. So basically, you'd let it die. Seems like it'd be more humane to just take a pair of scissors.
Objection.
So there you have it. So that's comfort care, by the way. Comfort care.
Which you remember Governor Ralph Northam talked about making the baby comfortable and the parents talking to the doctors. This is the open secret or the little known secret of abortion that Northam blabbed out publicly on radio. And so that is Democratic Party policy.
And Joe Biden...
it's not even used to be abortion up to 9 months. Now it's abortion up to 9 months and a few days.
Yes.
After birth. So that's what Joe Biden stands for, and he's quite proud of that. I mean, he used to be kind of one of the wishy-washy abortion people in the Democratic Party. Now you're not allowed to run for office in the Democratic Party unless you believe in abortion from 9 months and a few days. And that's where Joe Biden stands. Trump
is the opposite. It's basically, I suppose, just the opposite. It's as simple as that. So Trump is anti-abortion, basically. I think, I don't love the phrase pro-life. He's anti-abortion and very clear about that. And this is one of the reasons that ACB has been nominated. That he's got all these pro-life, anti-abortion people on the Supreme Court now. Yeah. So so those are the two positions, and you have to decide as a voter. You have to decide which side are you on.
Yeah, but I think one is honest about his position, the other is squishy.
But now we're going to go to this interview we did earlier that Phelim actually did earlier with Matthew Tyrmand.
Yes. So Matthew Tyrmand. So he's a great investigative journalist. And he's got access to one of the 3 tranches of Hunter Biden's emails, which is both a wonderful opportunity and must be pretty depressing going through the emails of a meth addict Biden scion. So let's go over that interview. It's very funny and it's very serious, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Let's go over that now. Okay, so I'm joined now by Matthew Tyrmand, who is an investigative journalist and currently knee-deep in Hunter Biden, which sounds like something Hunter Biden would pay for. Sorry, that was a cheap shot.
It's a very cheeky film.
Yes. Tell me, there's a lot of Hunter Biden material going around. Tell me the material that you have, and tell me the other material that's out there, because I think that people need to be, because the mainstream media is basically not covering this, people may be not aware of everything that's out there and the distinctions between them.
Sure. Well, right now, there are 3 tranches of data drops, so to speak, circulating around the Biden crime family syndicate, which centers around Hunter's activity. The first was what Rudy Giuliani and Steve Bannon unleashed with the actual laptop of, the provenance is still being established, but the emails have been verified and corroborated as real. So these are Hunter Biden's files, emails, photos, whatever else, WhatsApp messages, text messages, and that is all straight from the laptop, whether it's the original laptop or a cloned cache, who knows, but it is real. And that's being corroborated both by the Tony Bobulinski, which we'll get to, another business partner, and the emails that I have. So what happened with my situation was Bevan Cooney, who was a longtime business partner of Hunter Biden, an associate of Devon Archer. So Devon Archer was the ringleader of the sort of Hunter Biden business activities. And he was the founder of Rosemont Capital and Rosemont Seneca. Rosemont Capital was his partnership with Chris Hines, John Kerry's stepson. After Chris Hines got a little bit of cold feet seeing the lines that they were blurring and what they were involved in, they focused on elevating Hunter Biden's role with the other joint venture, which was Rosemont Seneca, which was a private equity fund as well as an advisory and consulting firm. And that was the vehicle that they used to engage business deals in what Peter and I call the United Nations of Corruption: Russia, Ukraine, China, and Kazakhstan. That was the company that they did a joint venture with Bohai Harvest, a major Chinese player heavily connected to the CCP. So those entities were vehicles for delivering returns for basically the Biden family crime syndicate.
And Bevan Cooney is in prison at the moment, and he's given you access to those emails. And then there's a separate tranche.
A third that just came late last week on Thursday. Tony Bobulinski was the more recent business partner because Devin Archer had legal problems and all of their crew had legal problems. Bevan Cooney actually went to prison for a year. He's supposed to be released. Right now he's in solitary, and we could talk about what the impact of the media exposure has done with the feds taking him out of this sort of low security work camp type facility and putting him in solitary.
Yeah.
But Tony Bobulinski came forward as a more recent business partner that corroborated some of the things that we found on the Hunter Biden laptop, which said things like, we're going to hold some of this equity for the big guy, the chairman.
Yeah, no, we'll get on to that. We'll get on to that, but I just wanted to, for everyone out there, I just wanted to let them know that there are three sources of data here. It's a data-rich environment. You got the Hunter Biden's laptop, which has other interesting material on it as well. You've got Bevan Cooney, which you have, which is his old business partner. He's currently in prison, and you've got access to his email account. And then you've got the Tony Bobulinski, and Tony Bobulinski gave a press conference last week, basically confirming the veracity of one of the emails where they talked about the big guy getting 10%, and Hunter would hold the 10% for him because he couldn't hold it himself, and that is Joe Biden. And Joe Biden's brother is also involved. So, so tell me, how did you come across Bevan Cooney, and how did that relationship develop, and what's that been like?
Yeah, well, like everything in life, it's a confluence of events and random acts. I knew a guy in Chicago who I'd met randomly a few times through people. I live in Chicago part-time. It's where I am right now. I kind of split time between New York, Chicago, and Warsaw, Poland. And I was in Chicago, and I met this guy in I'm not going to say his name at the moment for obvious reasons, but I met him in about 2015 or so, and saw him a few times into 16, 17. He disappeared. I got a message from him recently in September saying, hey, Matt, it's so-and-so. I am in prison with Bevan Cooney, and we are very good friends, and he has told me a lot of things. And this guy, who will remain nameless, my contact directly into Bevan, he had known what I was doing in sort of political journalism and investigative journalism. He'd seen me in the acknowledgments of Peter Schweitzer's where he broke out the Burisma case in Ukraine. I was working with Peter in Ukraine, finding the team on the ground to pierce the corporate veil to prove that Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma. He was being paid, the board meetings, the attendees, all that sort of thing. And so he'd seen that. So he reached out to me, and then he put me on some calls with Bevan, and we had a conversation about what did he want to accomplish with this, as well as what did he have. And the interesting thing about this is, I think Bevan's a hero. He had 1 month to go before he was going to be released. And that was specifically to coincide with after the election. We could talk about his sentencing and the judge who sentenced him. It's a classic deep state at work. Ronnie Abrams, the judge who sentenced him, dismissed the case against Devin Archer, who was clearly, from all the evidence, the ringleader of all the crony activity. They were involved in a bond scheme where they defrauded a Indian tribe in the Dakotas. And Devin Archer was the ringleader, and Bevan was involved. He was sort of like an associate who helped effectuate some of the paperwork kind of thing. And he ended up getting sentenced. And Devin Archer, who's clearly the ringleader from all the evidence, she threw out with the line, what worries me is that you might be innocent of all this, which is an incredible cop-out and farce, because if you look at, the emails I've seen or any of the evidence that the prosecutors would have had, it's clearly not the case. This guy could have been innocent. He was the ringleader. So, but the reason they did that was because if Devin Archer would have been convicted, the blood splatter from that would have hit Hunter. And the plot thickens. Ronnie Abrams went to law school with Hunter, and they're close friends from law school, Yale Law School 25 years ago, and very deeply in the D.C. Democrat milieu. Her husband was on the Mueller report.
I suppose we should really tell people actually who Hunter Biden is, start at the beginning actually, in a sense. He's a very interesting character. Obviously, he's Joe Biden's son, but he's had an interesting life. He, among his many achievements, was getting into the Navy under dubious circumstances.
41 years old. He managed to have his dad pull some strings to get him in because he was so rudderless and adrift in life that he thought maybe some military discipline would help him at 41. Then he got booted out for cocaine usage, chronic cocaine usage.
He had an affair with Beau Biden, his brother's widow, whilst at the same time having an affair with was it a stripper or a dancer? I don't want to.
So first, Beau passes, and that was tragic. Beau was the good kid. I mean, this was a real dysfunctional family, and the more we see, and Ashley Biden's diaries floating out there now, and it paints a picture of a very screwed up family, in politics at a high level, but not really minding their own home and their emotional stability. And so Beau passes from terminal brain cancer, and the story is that Hunter, in their shared grief, they fall in love. So he leaves his wife for Beau's widow, and then can't keep it in his pants after that relationship sort of settles into normalcy and gets involved with the stripper he knocks up, and then denies.
To which red-blooded male among us hasn't left their wife for their brother's widow and knocked up a stripper on the side, and then refused to pay child support? Class act, really. Class act. And I want you to, I'm not saying you have any specific knowledge of this, but there's a lot of really inaccurate stuff going around on Twitter. That famous picture of him lying in bed with a pipe, it's not a crack pipe, it's a meth pipe. Isn't that correct?
I don't know. I mean, my expertise on smoking devices is, I roll my own cigarettes with tobacco. So, I think as a glass pipe, it could probably be used for multiple substances.
My sources tell me that it's strictly a meth pipe. That there's a crack pipe. If you want to get the best out of crack, it's a different pipe. So
it's good that you have excellent sources.
Yes, So this is the kind of person Hunter Biden is. So obviously you would want him on the board of your East European oil and gas company, managing at a very high level and advising and consulting at a very high level, because he has so much to offer the oil and gas and energy sector in Eastern Europe.
Corporate governance, one of the things that I loved about that story, because I was pretty close to this with Peter from the beginning, another one of the people that I've written about, I live in Poland part-time, so I'm involved in Polish politics, and the former president of Poland, Alexander Kwasniewski, who is as cronied and corrupt as it gets, from looting the country when he was president to when he was after president, he was a fellow board member, and he made public comments that, of course we want somebody with the name Biden on our board, and he can help us with things like Western-style board governance, which is pretty laughable coming from Kwasniewski, as well as referring to Hunter this way. This is not a guy who has any real substantive experience. He's coasted on the last name, whether it's Amtrak board directorship or Boyes and Schiller, top law firm his dad got him into, or the military. Everything he's done has been strings pulled by his rather corrupt father. And people forget that his father, as Senator of Delaware, was known as the credit card senator, the MBNA senator, because for decades Delaware was the the Liechtenstein, the Luxembourg, the Isle of Man of U.S., where you had a very strong veil, so everybody incorporated in Delaware, all the credit card companies incorporated there. He represented the interests of a business that, you could debate on its predatory nature, but was a black box. And so he represented their interest, and he got his son as a lawyer representing them as well. So, I mean, the crony concentric circles of boondoggle are pretty incredible.
Well, so you have these Bevan Cooney emails. Give us the top story you think's come out of that.
So there's a bunch, and obviously there's a lot of interest in China. What I really tried to focus on from the get-go, because it was really a breaking story that nobody had, that nobody'd seen, was that they were involved, and this is what I went on Laura Ingraham to talk about, and I've done a lot of press on, they were involved in a money laundering scheme for a Russian mob-tied oligarch, Yelena Baturina. Yelena Baturina was the wife of the mayor of Moscow, Yuri Lushkov, who had been mayor since Yeltsin times. And she had a construction company. And she became a billionaire. And I spoke to my sources on the ground in Moscow, and that for years it was an open joke. In the City Hall Municipal Building, you had the mayor's office, you had the Office of Public Works, and then you had Yelena Baturina's Inteco, the corporate office for her company. And so the public works contracts would go from the mayor to the DPW straight to her. And she made billions. She was also in State Department cables and WikiLeaks in 2010, where they talk about putting her on watch list because she's so dirty. She was tied to the most vicious vertical of the Russian mob, the Moscow Russian mob that was involved as enforcers for her construction business. So this was a very, very dirty woman. In end of 2010, Medvedev cans Yuri Lushkov from the mayor's role because Yuri Lushkov was making comments about Medvedev being weak and wanted a stronger pro-Russian leader, kind of trying to pony up to Putin. But Medvedev pushed him out. Within months, him and her escaped to London, where they lived in exile. And in the coming few years after that, the Russian government, the Russian Federation, was trying to work with Interpol to extradite her with a red notice back to Russia because they want to hold her accountable for her crimes because she ran astray from the power pyramid.
Yeah, but what's the Hunter Biden connection?
So Hunter Biden was the reason why they chose to work with Devon Archer, Rosemont, and Burnham Financial. Burnham Financial was the broker-dealer, the Wall Street firm. It's got a long history. If you remember hearing about Drexel Burnham Lambert in the 80s with Michael Milken, this was a storied Wall Street sort of consolidation of firms. In the 90s, it was spun back out, and it was much weaker after Drexel Burnham and Lambert.
Their connection to Hunter Biden?
Hunter Biden was vice chairman of Burnham Financial. He was the partner in Rosemont Seneca. Rosemont Seneca was who they contracted with to invest funds in the U.S. if they could get banked in the U.S. To do that, they needed to have an account with Burnham Financial, which was a broker-dealer that could transact securities transactions. And to do that, they needed J.P. Morgan's approval because Burnham Financial cleared their transactions through a prime broker, J.P. Morgan. And I have all the email traffic in January 2014. It starts in October 2013, where they start floating around working with her.
So she had this money that she wanted to launder, this ill-gotten gains that she needed to prove that it was all legitimate. So she contracted with Hunter Biden's company and Bevan Cooney's company, who had then a kind of a licensed dealership with J.P. Morgan. Connect.
Burnham Securities had their prime brokerage relationship with J.P. Morgan. So in the U.S., you have to follow certain rules about money laundering. It's called KYC, Know Your Customer, and AML, Anti-Money Laundering. And so you have to do reasonable due diligence to understand where the money's come from if it's coming into the U.S. banking system.
So J.P. Morgan could say, "Oh, it came from Burnham," and Burnham said, oh, "We're okay. It came from Hunter Biden and Bevan Cooney," and it's actually
does it according. And I was on Wall Street for a long time, and every year you have to do hours of seminars on exactly this subject, and nobody with any knowledge could ever pass this legitimately because at the same time she was on a Treasury watch list because Putin, Sberbank, owned a big chunk of Inteco.
My point is that Hunter Biden had the name Hunter Biden, Bevan Cooney, Burnham Financial. He was using his name to launder her money, to remove her from the chain as such. And when Hunter Biden turns up and says, "I've got this money to invest," he's fine because he's got the Biden name.
That's probably why J.P. Morgan took it on, because you can see in the email traffic they slow down the process and are very nervous about it. And they even cite that she's on a watch list related to OFAC, the Office of Foreign Asset Control.
Oh, so J.P. Morgan knew that this was the original money was coming from.
Yeah, it's the account's in her name, and she's a well-known. You just have to Google her and see how many fraud investigations all over the world she's been involved in.
In the end, why did they decide to go ahead with it?
Well, it was big money coming in and their bankers, as well as Hunter Biden. Look, Yelena Baturina did not go to Devon Archer and Burnham Securities to open an account because she thought Burnham Securities was such a superior Wall Street firm. She did it because she knew that, and again, this is at the same time what's going on is Ukraine's being destabilized, the Crimean annexation is happening, Maidan is happening, so there's a lot of Russian money fleeing out of Russia and Europe trying to get into the U.S. and other places because they know sanctions are going to be ticking up against them because of the Putin circle. So the reason they chose Hunter Biden was because they astutely realized J.P. Morgan would have a much harder time saying no to an affiliate of Hunter Biden than if they just came in with Joe Schmo.
How much money came through the Hunter Biden JP Morgan connection?
So what we know is that there was a payment made directly from Baturina to Rosemont Seneca of $3.5 million. What I surmise this to be is a fee for consulting and advisory for getting her money into the U.S. to invest. What we also know is that in August 2014, in a board meeting of Burnham Securities, which Devin Archer was on the board, Hunter Biden was later vice chairman of the firm. Devin Archer, and this firm had some struggles, had some liquidity issues. Devin Archer says in the board meeting, where he's legally a fiduciary, he's not allowed to lie, that's against the law, in a board meeting of a finance firm. He says that by August 2014, the account was approved in January 2014. In that 7 months, he invested $200 million US in US projects for Yelena Baturina.
So we're talking about moving at least 200 million, and their fee for that was 3.5 million. So they got a fee of 1.5%.
And that's about what these things go for. It's usually 1 to 2%.
So tell me the next big scandal that'll come out of these emails that you have.
Oh, I mean, the emails are incredible. I put a lot of them on Laura Ingraham. And by the way, I've got 2 dozen or so on a Scribd account, so scribd.com. And if you Google Scribd plus Matthew Tyrmand, you'll find I posted about 25 of these emails and other primary source documents. The verbiage they talk about the Biden lift, in quotes, the Biden lift, which we put together means that Hunter exists to give them a lift when one of 2 scenarios is necessary. They've got a problem that needs cleaning up, as we saw with Ukraine and Shohokin, the prosecutor that Joe Biden forced the termination of by threatening to withhold $1 billion of U.S. aid when Ukraine needed it, as well as opening up opportunities, like you did with Yelena Baturina. The Biden lift was, okay, well, Yelena Baturina is not coming to us because we're such skilled operators. She's coming to us because she sees Hunter Biden's connections into the White House at the highest level. So they call that the Biden lift. In one email that I posted, they talk about Operation Ketchup, which is watering down Hines because Chris Hines, John Kerry's stepson, gets nervous about the extent at which they're going to effectuate these transactions. Yeah. So they say, let's water down Hines, and from now on, we go Hunts all the way. Hunts is the number 2 brand of ketchup after Hines. So there's a little funny play on words there. I mean, they make some very derogatory comments about Baturina sexually. They talk about putting honey in Hunter's pocket. They talk about using him more because he is another currency they have, ... a direct administration pipeline. They talk about on a company that they're investing in that they're going to take control of. We can't put Hunter as CEO because he's basically incompetent, but we'll put him as the head of the nonprofit or something like this where we can give him a title.
Shouldn't these people have been registered as a foreign agent?
I think Hunter Biden is the largest FARA registration scofflaw in American history.
Yeah, just to interrupt you there, I mean, scofflaw, back in the old days, just to let people know, if you do any work for a foreign government, you're supposed to register and as a foreign agent, and there's a form you fill in, and then that means all your contracts are public and all the documents are public. And up until 2016, it was an administrative issue, really, actually, and half of DC had failed to register as a foreign agent. And it was only when some reporter would point out that they hadn't that they would do it, and nobody was ever prosecuted for. Then when Mueller et al. Wanted to get senior people on the Trump campaign, that's when they started prosecuting people who failed to register as far. I know this from not from personal experience, but from other work I've done on the Chevron Stephen Donziger case. There was a PR company in DC that was organizing protests and paying for protests, and they had a contract with the Ecuadorian government, and it was only when that was revealed that they registered as a foreign agent, years lagging and backdated their filing, and they weren't prosecuted or anything. So it has gone from being an administrative failure to a crime now.
And I've done a lot of research into exactly this subject, working with Peter and in other investigations. And FARA, which stands for the Foreign Agent Registration Act, which is a subset of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, FCPA, is now it's a highly prosecutable crime because there is all this money from all over the world flowing into DC to influence politics.
It's only a prosecutable crime because the FBI started, and the DOJ started it to get at the Trump people, to get Flynn, to get Manafort. Now they're hoisted by their own petard.
Yeah, and it's funny because, they would go after Trump world by just, dotting I's and crossing T's incorrectly. Now you got a guy hiding behind quote unquote business, but for China, Russia, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan. I've got emails of Devon Archer roaming around with the Kazakh foreign minister under the guise of, well, we're looking for business deals in the energy sector. He's making introductions all over politics. He's bringing Chinese CCP-connected apparatchiks into the White House for meetings. This is the definition of foreign influence lobbying, why FARA, the law, was written, so there can be transparency should foreign money come into our system and destabilize or influence different things legislatively, especially as pertains to foreign policy.
I mean, as you say, if Don Jr. had received a fee of $3 million from the wife of the mayor of Moscow, who's now...
who's tied to the Russian mob.
Who's tied to the Russian mob and who's kind of on the run. There might have been a few headlines about it. Would you suggest?
If Don Jr. crossed against the light on Fifth Avenue and jaywalked, they wouldn't leave him alone for 4 months. Yeah. So, the double standard's rife. The good thing is Americans see it. I believe, I spent a lot of time all over this country, going everywhere, even lefty states like Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I was just in Minneapolis, and people see it. They see that, when Lester Holt, after the debate, mentions the laptop and how nobody knows it, and Chuck Todd says, oh, that's only Fox News speak. Well, Fox News does get more viewership than CNN plus MSNBC, and frequently network as well.
The Hunter Biden Chronicles will only matter if Biden wins. Once this election is over and if Trump wins, Biden's just going to disappear, isn't he?
He'll go to where he should have been already, which is a convalescence home for 3 p.m. Jell-O and 4 p.m. pudding. He doesn't have a clue what's going on. But there should be accountability, and Hunter and this whole crime crew, Devon Archer's case has been reopened. Hopefully the feds are going to pick up Devon this week and open up his head for evidence. There needs to be accountability, and the Hunter Biden Chronicles, because he's such a cartoon character, I think would still be good, because we need to expose leftist corruption. They attack us for doing what they are actually doing. Russia, 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 us. Well, I proved that Hunter Biden and the Biden family crime syndicate are laundering money for Russian mob-tied oligarchs who worked with Putin.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and let's keep in touch.
By all means. Thanks for doing this.
Bye.
Wow. Well, that's incredible. I mean,
and that's just his emails. There's the other emails from all the other. I mean, if this was Don Jr., I mean,
oh yeah, we'd never hear anything except for that.
They'd be making movies about it right now. As we speak.
Those pictures of Hunter Biden with the crack pipe or whatever it is, or the meth pipe, they'd be on every billboard on every highway across America right now. Yeah.
Actually, that's a good idea. Maybe they should be. Exactly.
So there's a thought, but you've only got a week to do it. So Shonda, we come to Shonda Rhimes. Shonda Rhimes. Shondaland. She's the inventor of Shondaland.
Yes. So basically, everything you ever saw on ABC, all the TV series you ever saw on ABC, she's the creator of them. So she's the creator of Grey's Anatomy. She's the creator of Scandal. She's the creator of How to Get Away with Murder.
Very successful and very, very creative woman, actually, by the way.
And she's she was actually a very creative woman, I would say. Then she got woke and got boring, and she thought it was really cool and edgy in Scandal to have one of the characters have an abortion at Christmas whilst
playing Silent Night in the background
over the abortion. Isn't this wonderful? So she then, obviously Netflix are looking to get these original content creators, and she went there. I mean, it's hard to know how much of this is justifying a money grab or how much of it is real. It's hard to know. But Shonda Rhimes, anyway, she's been at ABC 15 years, maybe 20 years. And Grey's Anatomy,
huge.
And she's African-American, black. And, so she was a show creator 15, 20 years ago on ABC, Grey's Anatomy. So obviously they were very welcoming.
Oh, yeah.
There wasn't much discrimination there.
That's right.
And she, back in 2017...
And I kind of like this story. I think it's worth just stopping for a moment and remembering, because there's all this talk about racism and that black people haven't been represented. Here was a really talented woman, and she did, she created Grey's Anatomy, by the way, very, very entertaining, hugely successful all over the world. And you know, she rose to the top because she had a great idea, you know, and no one stopped her. And I just think it's kind of interesting in the middle of all this conversation about the fact that people are unrepresented and people aren't getting ahead. You know, there she was, a smart woman with a great idea, very creative, and she did come to the top. And no one pushed her down. And she ended up in this amazing situation.
Basically, everything you were watching on ABC was by
from her.
Shonda Rhimes. You know,
Yeah, she created a whole world.
The Dick Wolf of ABC.
Yeah.
And so anyway, she was, her reps were in negotiation with Netflix, or actually with the ABC. And then, so ABC is owned by Disney. So she gets a free ticket to Disney World as an employee of Disney, and her nanny got a free ticket as well. And her sister was coming into town, and her sister wanted to take her daughter to Disney World. So she phones up ABC and asks,
can I just say she tells this story by way of explaining
how she was kind of discriminated against.
How she was badly treated.
Not appreciated at ABC.
Not appreciated.
Now, I would imagine she has probably got 100 million from ABC, maybe more.
Over the years.
150. But she's not appreciated at ABC. And
so who's coming into town?
Her sister.
So her sister's coming into town and she wants to get a free ticket to Disneyland for her sister. Now, she's already got a free ticket, general free ticket all the time.
Two free tickets.
One for herself and one for her nanny. But the sister's coming into town and she really wants her sister to get in for free.
Yes, a ticket to a Disney World, a Disneyland.
This is somebody who's already gotten 100 million off that company.
Is $154.
She wants to get that ticket for free, $154.
So,
what happens to her?
So she says eventually they do. She says she negotiated, and she needed one for her sister. And she got, after some unwanted
back and forth.
We never do this, she was told more than once. She was issued an additional pass, but when they arrived there, it didn't work. And she phoned a high-ranking executive of the company. Surely he would get this sorted. And instead, the exec allegedly replied, "Don't you have enough?" And she was beside,
which, by the way, I would have said.
Anyway, she got it sorted out. And by the way, it's true. Don't you have enough? Like, couldn't you buy a free ticket?
It's kind of like if you were an executive like at McDonald's and you don't understand why your friend doesn't get free McDonald's. I mean, it's $154, by the way, to a woman who has earned probably
$154 million.
$154 million off that company. You think you might spend a little bit of money
just
there.
Just to let you know the kind of money we're talking about. It's apparently the deal with Netflix that she went on to do was over 300 million. She since says it was more than 500 million. I saw somewhere. So this. So you can imagine how much ABC were paying her, and she wouldn't.
And you know the way.
But actually, the worst of it is that the media are putting this out as it's some kind of empowering story that she was right to do this, you know?
It's kind of mad. And by the way, this gives us an opportunity, a little bit like she's actually, I mean, the fact that she tells this story, it's embarrassing, by the way. I mean, I would never, you just never admit to this because it's like, it's so embarrassing. It's like, and the executive, if the executive did say it, is, yeah, don't you have enough? Like, seriously, you want to get a freebie. You want to get a freebie, like off the company, by the way. But the thing that I think is lovely about this is, so Chandra, I mean, and it kind of reminds me of the show we did where we talked about Michelle Obama and the Obamas in general and how many beautiful homes they have. Chandra now has a lot of real estate. So Chandra is not... Shonda is not short of money at all, by the way. And we're just going to put up a few photographs of her home here in Los Angeles. Very nice, yummy house, lovely pool, lovely kitchen. But that's not enough. She has a lovely, lovely place in New York as well, just $11 million. I think the house here is around $10 million. The apartment in New York is $11 million. Look at the lovely apartment in New York. Look at those gorgeous photographs. But the bit that I really love about this, so when I was looking at the real estate last night, and I was playing this to you, Phelim, it was so funny. So she was showing people, she decided to show people around, and Architects Digest have breathlessly covered the homes that she has. But the home that she has here in Hancock Park, I think it is, in Los Angeles, she decided that when Architects Digest would come, she'd do a little video as well of her favourite room in that house. And that favourite room is the library, where she says she spends an awful lot of time. And look at her here now. But here's the bit we loved of that video. Have a listen to this.
So this is my chair by the fireplace. Winter, summer, don't care. Have that fireplace going and roaring and sort of making a cozy fire and writing.
So that's interesting. So she burns a fire, winter or summer, doesn't matter what the weather's like. This is the same Shonda, who, by the way, says that
Climate change is real.
Climate change is real and it's happening. It's real and it's happening. But obviously it's not that real and it's not really happening, because if you really cared, Shonda, you wouldn't burn a fire winter and summer where the weather is already gorgeous all the time.
And you wouldn't say, I don't care.
And you wouldn't say, I don't care, but that's what you did in your own words. And we're all into verbatim around here.
Yes.
So we love that. Tell us about Leslie now. Can I just say something about Leslie Stahl? Have I said her name right, Phil?
Yes.
Where does Leslie Stahl work, Phil?
CBS.
She works for CBS. She's in 60 Minutes, right?
Yes.
So last night, another thing we did, we were preparing yesterday for this show, and we're looking at Leslie Stahl, and you all know what she looks like, and there's a photograph over there and everything. And it just occurred to me to ask myself, and maybe you'll ask yourself, what age is Leslie Stahl? So Leslie Stahl, not to be ageist or anything, Leslie is 78 years old.
On the contrary, actually.
Au contraire. And I just think it's really amazing. This country is a great country to age in. It's a great country to age.
For old men or old
It's a
women.
great country for old women and old men. Look at Nancy Pelosi.
When we first
in
came
Ireland,
here,
in Ireland, by the way, you'd never have the like.
When we first came here, and you get this in Europe all the time, it's the adoration of the youth, and
those awful Americans.
Yeah, they just worship youth and vitality, and they worship.
No, they don't.
They don't. I mean,
no.
You come here and it's full of old people.
2 candidates for president, by the way, are in their 70s.
Late 70s.
Late 70s.
Yeah.
Leslie Stahl is 78. She is 78. Anyway,
Barbara
I just
Walters was working until she was 90.
Stop. Anyway, I just thought it was worth mentioning that, because I said to Phelim last night, how old do you think she is? And you came out with whatever you said, whatever. And then I remember looking it up and you were pretty shocked, right? Anyway, Leslie Stahl of 60 Minutes. What's she been up to, Phelim?
Well, it's not been a good week for old Leslie.
No.
She's been shown to be a hack, but we told you years ago. But let me tell you, in case you didn't know, she interviewed the president, and they issued this trailer saying, "Oh, the president walks out," and then the president had been recording the interview himself, or his people had, and they released the full interview, and basically it showed he didn't walk out, but B, just how ill prepared she is, and how. And really unfair journalism, but you probably expect that from her. And there's one part of it where she says to Trump, about the economy, and he says, I had the best economy in the world. I had a great economy until COVID. And she goes, that's not true. And then he comes out with all these facts about record black employment, record Wall Street, record stock market, record this, record that. And she goes, her only answer to this, I'm not going to fact check you now. And if you look at last night's CBS 60 Minutes, she comes out of that interview and throws all these figures to contradict the president, but she didn't do it in the interview, which is really unfair.
Oh, it's very unfair.
Because you're actually saying, no, the president's wrong. Well, if he's wrong, you should have put it to him in the interview. And the answer
allowed him to defend himself.
The answer is she didn't have the figures at her fingertips. She's a hack. She was ill. Imagine being ill prepared for a presidential interview.
Oh yeah, for an interview with the president.
Imagine it's just
it's shocking.
But
it's not the first time.
No, we've come across it before. Let's listen to.
For the first time you kind of came across her personally.
Actually, thank God. So you remember Gasland? We did Frack Nation in response to it. Really, what inspired us to do that was that flaming faucet scene from Gasland, where the guy is setting his water on fire, and Leslie Stahl went to Dimock, Pennsylvania, and let's hear her ask a question in astonishment.
You put a match to your water and it went up in flames?
I can take my water, just put it in a gallon jug, shake it up, turn it up, and it'll explode like.
Well, Leslie, dear, darling, sweetheart.
Have you heard of the Googling?
Yes, there's a journalistic tool that is, and we shouldn't really say this on.
No, it's like giving away it's like giving away the trade secrets.
It's like the way magicians giving away their tricks, right? But listen, okay.
Googling.
We're going to tell the audience out here this technique we have in journalism, and it's a kind of a secret way of getting information. It's called Google, right?
The Googling.
Right? And it's a thing journalists use. You probably haven't heard of it and you don't know much about it. But anyway, it's a thing where you put in a phrase or something like that, and it gives you all this information from the past and previous reports. And if you put in flaming faucet or water on fire, you see that water on fire has been a phenomenon of this planet for thousands of years. There's a lot of natural gas down there. It comes up the easiest way possible, and quite often that's up through a water source.
So loads and loads of towns across America called Burning Springs. You're going to look at some of the pictures of them right now. They're called Burning Springs, and they were called Burning Springs hundreds and hundreds of years ago because, the spring would be able to be lit on fire. And burn. And why would that be, Phelim?
Because there's gas down there.
Because there's so much fossil fuels.
And people in Dimock, Pennsylvania, where Leslie was asking this astonished question, if you had to walk down the street and said, have you been able to light your water on fire? And we've talked to 80-year-old women who could light their water on fire
back in the day when they were kids.
When they were kids at school. And that was one of the things, everyone used to rush to school early so that it could be the first one to light the water on fire at school, because the tap would not have been lit, the water would not have been put on overnight, and there'd be a gas stored up in the faucet, and they would do that. So
Can you imagine though? So, even Leslie, by the way, who obviously doesn't have the Googling, but she probably has the Encyclopedia Britannica, right? So she'd be looking up the encyclopedias for this, but even the encyclopedias have this. Even the encyclopedias that she uses to do her research have this. But clearly, Leslie doesn't believe much in doing any research. And instead of being an actual journalist, she works like a stenographer. She basically goes, asks people questions. They give incredible answers that are really shocking. And she doesn't bother doing any further research. She just leaves it as that.
Yeah.
Moving right along. Phelim, are we looking forward to Thanksgiving? Are we looking forward to Thanksgiving, Phelim?
I am.
Really?
I am.
Because?
Because it'll be after the election.
Thank
and
God.
once the election is over, actually, the coronavirus, the COVID virus, the Chinese communist virus will be gone, because there'll be no... Well, if Trump wins, I think some diehards will still want to continue the lockdown. If Biden wins, the lockdown will be over on the 4th of November. You can be sure. But anyway,
Governor Newsom.
Governor Newsom of California, God help us, has new regulations for Thanksgiving. And, it's like somebody once said, I remember we were at a university somewhere and they had a free speech zone, and I remember someone wrote to the paper, it says, I've drawn a little map to show you the free speech zone, right? Just to help you out. He wrote to the university administrators, and the map was,
America.
All red, America, and the Canadian border was the limit, and the Mexican border was the limit. And it's like,
sense.
Thanksgiving regulations, and let me help you, Gavin Newsom, there are none. It's Thanksgiving. It's giving thanks to America, where there are no regulations about Thanksgiving, where you cannot come into someone's home and tell them what they should and shouldn't do.
Well, here's what Gavin Newsom has said. He wants to ban gatherings of more than 3 households.
No, I know, he is banning gatherings.
Yeah, he's going to outlaw indoor gatherings, require guests, I love this one, try this one, Phelim. Require guests to sit 6 feet apart. And by the way, not everyone lives in a castle, Governor Newsom. I mean, if you live in a castle...
A tax-exempt castle.
A tax-exempt castle, as he does, you can sit 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
Most people live in ordinary-sized homes where you couldn't possibly do that. You don't have 2 people in the room if you did that.
And so, I love this. Suggest serving your turkey in single-serve disposable containers. If there's anything that is likely to make you want to kill yourself, it is getting your Thanksgiving turkey
on a plastic
single-serve disposable containers. It's like this was the saddest thing I've ever seen is the Coke machine outside the Motel 6 or something. It's the saddest thing is single unit turkey, Thanksgiving turkey.
Single use plastic servings for your turkey. Horrible, absolutely horrible.
So thanks, Governor Newsom. This is a quick little piece, the next bit, an NPR piece. NPR, we get.
So everyone remembers what's just happened in France, this extraordinarily awful situation where a teacher was beheaded
for criticising Islam. For actually not criticising
and he wasn't even criticising Islam.
He showed, it was a free speech class, and he showed one of the Charlie Hebdo cartoons, and the local Muslim came along and beheaded him.
Yes.
And
how did NPR treat that, Phil?
Recent attacks in Paris linked to cartoons published by the satirical magazine Charlie Hebdo have intensified the debate among comedians in France about freedom of expression. NPR reports, and so what do? The only example they do is a comedian who's anti-Semitic. Right? And the whole story is about this guy who's anti-Semitic. Has he gone too far? I don't even know if he's genuinely anti-Semitic or he's just doing this to make a point. But there are bigger free speech issues. There's no Jews running around beheading people who are anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
The Jews are going, fine, be anti-Semitic, just don't kill us. And, you know,
and you can joke about, and the Jews are quite happy to be joked about.
I mean,
it.
the biggest
they'll have no problem.
anti-Semitic jokes come from the Jews.
Correct. We know them because we hear them all the time.
Yes.
Actually,
and
then we
sometimes I forget. I was playing football the other morning, and there's only 2 Jewish guys on the team, and they started joking about it. And I told one of those jokes that my Jewish friends told me. I was thinking,
you need to be careful with that.
I need to be careful because not everyone knows me, right? And but I think they took it in
good stead.
But I should have said, little asterisk. This was told to me by another Jewish person. No.
So we've been watching some TV shows, so you don't have to, and for you to be, and actually the 2 shows we want to review right now, we're going to review them so that you don't watch them.
Yeah.
And the first one is Transplant, which is a new medical. Talking of Grey's Anatomy, this is where Grey's Anatomy back in the day, very entertaining. Really wasn't that woke at all. Wasn't woke at all. It was just kind of. It was all about people getting married, people pairing off, nurses and doctors and doctors and nurses and doctors and doctors and all kinds of versions of that.
Yeah.
But Transplant, which is this new hospital procedural on NBC, which we started watching, and the main character is Syrian. His parents have both died. Both of them were doctors. He's arrived with his sister, and all very fabulous. And all that's very fabulous and everything. And
Muslims are good.
Very dramatic start, and he's a Muslim, and he's all very good, and he's all very nice. And that's all fine. But it's literally, I would say we're 6 or 7 weeks into it, maybe, at this point.
So every week they're pushing social engineering or liberal ideology through medicine.
Got a trauma coming in. What the hell do you think you're doing?
His job. He's one of you now. Maybe don't show him where we keep the power tools. You were a trauma surgeon that was in Syria. In this hospital, you need to be better than everyone else.
I can't visualize her cords. I don't have a view.
You will now. The lights will guide it through the tube.
Like, for example, there was a 13-year-old girl who wanted to be a boy, who was transgender, and everyone was accepting it like it was perfectly normal and perfectly acceptable, and she wanted a double mastectomy, and eventually the doctor, not that he was even cynical or skeptical, but everyone came on board and it was fine, and you were weird if you didn't congratulate.
So the basic message out of the show, out of that particular show, was that a double mastectomy for a child was fine.
Yeah.
It was so nothing. It was such a nothing burger, actually. It was just another thing. That was one show that they had recently. Another show they had literally the following week was a woman who was
perfectly healthy.
Perfect. She was ill or whatever, but
wasn't terminal.
She wasn't terminal, and she just wanted to die. And the end of the show was basically we all learned that actually, you know what, the right thing is
euthanasia.
Help her to die.
And the daughter,
the kind and loving
and
thing.
the daughter who didn't want this to happen was just wrong and came to realize she was wrong.
Yeah, she was wrong, and so we all learned that.
Big 0 stars for Transplant on NBC.
And then the other show that we watched, so you don't have to, and I have to say, in fairness, and I think we're going to possibly argue about this now, Phelim, is there's a show on Amazon, and it's streaming on Amazon Prime, called The Missing.
I hear you've been asking questions.
So what? My son was taken.
You need to stop this. You need to go home.
I'm doing what we have to find my son.
I'm not as strong as you. I have to try and have some kind of a life.
I've lost everything. This is all I have left.
I won't give up. No matter what.
So the premise of the show is, for people of a certain age, you will remember Madeleine McCann, who was the child who was on holidays with her parents in Spain and was abducted. This show is sort of based loosely on that. It's based on a family going on holidays to France, and their child goes missing. And then you have 8 episodes to find out the mystery of what happened to the child. I think the basic problem with this, there's loads of problems with this show, and I'd highly recommend you not to watch it. And mostly the reason is, the idea of something awful happening to a child is just so awful that it's just beyond comprehension. And the idea that we did this to ourselves, Phelim, I think the reason we watched, I think there was a couple of reasons we watched. I think you watch a thing like that and you keep watching it because you want the child to be found alive. I think that's the one thing that keeps you going, right?
Yeah.
And I know we didn't really talk about this before, but that was the only thing that kept me going. Was I kept thinking, and you know the way they were finding clues, and maybe the child was alive, so you kept on having this kind of thing. We're not spoiling the end for you.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of have, by the way. I pretty much have their film.
Well, but
it's agonizing.
The other thing is that it's 8 episodes, and it's that's about
too many.
3 episodes too long, right? It's
5 episodes too long.
And also there's massive plot holes in it, massive plot holes, right? Like you're going, that doesn't actually make sense because, and then there's this, like for example, there's a clue that comes quite later in the show, and there's a blood stain on it, and when you see how the article was dropped, you can realize there's actually no way there could be a blood stain on that.
Yeah, there's definitely plot holes.
But the second thing is, there are all these examples of people going, we have to reopen the case because of X. And I'm going, yes, but also why? You've discovered why. Why won't you tell the guy who doesn't want to reopen the case about the why, which is actually much more important. And there's all these things where people are strangely stupid and don't say something that they know that would make a difference. And it's going, everyone's going, aren't you going to tell them about why? And it's like, no. And then, do you remember the journal? Let's just say there's someone who withholds evidence that might help the case, and there's no reason given, and no sensible reason why.
Yes.
Well, it's a journalist, right? Why he withheld the evidence, but also why he didn't use the evidence in his articles or the book he wrote.
Yeah, so there's loads of holes in it, but I have to say the main actor in it is James Nesbitt from Northern Ireland. He's very, very good, but he almost is so good that he does Anguish extremely well. And the woman who plays his wife, whose name I won't get right now, Frances O'Connor. Also, like the performances are all really, really good. Actually, I think the acting is really, really good. But I think it's the last thing anyone wants to watch during this particular year of 2020. It is anguish upon anguish.
But it's also, remember it's very badly written too. Remember there's a scene where the child has been the day before he goes missing or whatever. The child goes missing. He's drawn a painting, a little drawing, a child's drawing of his father with the big ears and all this kind of stuff, right? And then that whatever. So then subsequent into the show, like 3 episodes in, so weeks and months have passed or whatever, and that painting that little drawing has gone missing, and a woman in a hotel gives it to the James Nesbitt, to the father character, and says, oh, you lost this. And the father says to this woman, you must think I'm really silly to be worrying about the drawing. And it's like, no one that was ever born ever... And they have this big conversation about it.
Nobody would ever think that. Who would ever think that it would be silly to want to have the last drawing that your child ever drew, and it's of you? I mean, so there was a bit of crazy stuff like that in it.
They talked for this, this philosophical 5-minute interlude about how crazy it was. No, it's perfectly understandable for you. It's like, as you say, no one would even have this conversation.
No. But anyway, so there's 2 things not to watch. But we had a lovely comment from last week, by the way, because remember we did this piece about Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Nicks being all delighted with herself that Fleetwood Mac wouldn't have happened if she hadn't had an abortion. And this really nice message came from Emma, or EMANYM1. So she didn't give her actual name, and she put this out on, I think this is on YouTube. Stevie Nicks, basically she very helpfully, by the way, she went into the whole history of Fleetwood Mac and realised that Stevie Nicks actually joined Fleetwood Mac quite late. And then in fact, all 12 albums of the band had come out, I think, before Stevie Nicks had even joined them. Yeah. So Stevie Nicks this is what our lovely listener said, Stevie Nicks could have never joined the band and there would still be a Fleetwood Mac. They just would never have had someone who sounds like a 2-pack a day smoker as one of their lead vocalists. And this lovely lady says, I think this is a lady, if I have ever enjoyed any of their songs, and I don't know that I have, it would have been in spite of Stevie Nicks, not because of her. It's so tragic that at the age of 72, by the law of averages, she would soon discover the hard way that sacrificing her child for success in her career was not the boon she thought it had been. As a self-proclaimed witch, I didn't know that, by the way, she doesn't believe in the God who will judge her on Judgment Day, but that doesn't make him any less of a reality, nor will her ignorance of his existence help her. And then she has a beautiful
Yeah.
quote from Matthew. So really fabulous. Thank you so much
Well,
for doing that.
I just, she just talked there, as she says, sacrificing her child. And I know that people listening, having an abortion, and she called it sacrificing their child. And that sounds very archaic, and it sounds, no, she had an abortion. But actually, I discussed this with Brian Godowa last week. We look back now on child sacrifice. The crop has failed. You must sacrifice your firstborn. Something's happened. There's a war. There's a flood. Sacrifice your firstborn. We think, what kind of people are they that they would sacrifice their firstborn child for success, for some external factor? And then we see Stevie Nicks saying, I had an abortion so that the world could get Fleetwood Mac. And it's like, there's not that much difference.
Yeah.
Between
it's extraordinary. And that quote, by the way, that we got was Matthew 16, 24, 27, which I would highly recommend people to read.
We've got to read it there.
It's, if anyone desires to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever desires to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what profit is it to a man if he gains the whole world, Fleetwood Mac, that's not what it says in the Bible, and loses his own soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man will come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and then he will reward each according to his works. So I thought it was very good though. What profit is it if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? So I think that was kind of perfect. So thank you for sending that in, and thank you, by the way, for everyone who sends in messages to us. We really love them, by the way, and we read everything.
Yeah, read the comments on the podcast app, on the Apple Podcast app, or read the comments on YouTube. So please keep sending them in. So we're going to, talking of comments,
we're going to do the shout outs now.
Yeah, these are people who helped fund Obamagate and have made it the huge success it is. And the reason we know it's so successful is because big tech is trying to suppress it. So let's go through the people who funded this and made it happen. Patricia from Palmerton, Pennsylvania. Richard from Minneapolis.
Sharon from Grapevine, Texas.
Grapevine, Texas.
Oh, Grapevine, Texas.
Martin from Tucson, Arizona. Dean from Coraopolis, Pennsylvania.
Peter from Grants Pass, Oregon.
Beth from Golden Valley, Minnesota.
Dennis from San Antonio, Texas.
E. Calvin from Eads, Tennessee.
We have Herbert from Dayton, Ohio.
Donna from Colorado Springs. Victor from Westlake, Ohio. Marvin from Billings, Montana.
Cherry from Louisville, Kentucky.
Andrew from London, Ontario. Douglas from Lakewood, California. Tim from Squamish, Washington. Brandy from Vancouver, Washington. Christian from Dublin. Oh, okay.
Oh, from Dublin. Oh, hello, Christian from Dublin. That's Ireland, by the way. Where are we now?
Angela from Vancouver, British Columbia. Robert from Charleston, South Carolina. Kathleen from New York. Is that one that's in any relation to Dublin?
And David from Vestal, New York. Michael from Overland Park, Kansas. I have lots of nice friends in Overland Park, Kansas, by the way. We've got somebody in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Who is that? Mark. Thank you, Mark. Pamela from Evanston, Illinois. I've been to Evanston, Illinois. I give a speech there, actually. We've got Dorothy from Pasadena, California. We've got William from Gig Harbor, Washington.
Sounds like a
Bruce
nice place.
from Richardson, Texas. Robert from Westerville, Ohio. I think we've had him already. More than once. Thank you very much.
Maybe he gave more than once.
Thank you very much.
Julie from San Juan
Capistrano,
California. John from Fayetteville, North Carolina.
And I think a lot of people out there are like laughing at the way we pronounce places.
Is Fayetteville from North Carolina?
Fayetteville, North Carolina.
I thought that was Louisiana, no?
No, Philip. Apparently not, according to this. Michael from Gibraltar, Michigan.
Oh.
Jeffrey from Allentown, Pennsylvania. We've been there. I've been there. We have beautiful cinema, by the way, in Allentown.
Carlos from Sunrise somewhere.
From Sunrise somewhere. Ken from Mill Park, Victoria. We've got Cindy from Beach City, Texas. We've got
Calvin from Kansas City, Kansas. Adrian from Alexandria, Virginia.
We have Dennis from Delta, British Columbia.
William from Arlington Heights, Illinois. Esther from New York. Jan from
Montreal, Quebec.
Douglas from Eagle, Idaho. Jeffrey
Eagle, Idaho. We've got friends moving to Eagle, Idaho.
Yes, that's right. We did the whole Boise show from there. Yes, we've got many friends moving to.
We've got Jeffrey from Knoxville, Tennessee. We have John from in Yocum,
in Yokern.
in Yokern,
Inyokern,
California. Yeah. We've got M from Lake Zurich, Illinois, and Donovan from High Rolls, New Mexico.
That's a nice place. I don't know,
I like
is that a casino?
High Rolls. So we've got Bruce from Evanston, Wyoming. We've got M, by the way, and thank you, M, because you've come up a few times, from Lake Zurich, Illinois. Jack from Burlington, Ontario. Deborah from Livermore, California. Gregory from Columbus, Texas. Bob from Niceville.
Florida.
Seriously? He's from Niceville. Look at
Florida.
you living in Niceville, Florida. I'm looking up that place after this.
I want to live in Hateville.
Yeah, Phil, but that's because you're bitter. Bitterville. Phil wants to live in Bitterville, not Niceville. Keep going. We've got Odd. Oh, Odd. ODD, who lives in EVJE, Agerden. Okay, we're going to have to look that one up because we're not sure about that.
From Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Jeffrey from Louisville, Kentucky. Cindy from Leeds, Alabama.
Peter from Mitcham, Victoria. Christian from Apo, AE.
Never heard of it.
Don't know where that is. Jerry from Torrance, California.
Kurt from Fort Worth, Texas. Michael from Kenneck, Washington. Ian from Kanata, Ontario. That's up in Canada. And Annie from
Manassas, Virginia. And Dawn from Santa Barbara, California. Andrew from Burlingame, California. Peter from Seattle, Washington. Jim from Rancho Mirage, California. By the way, thank you very much, everybody, for being so fabulous. We love you. Nancy from Denver, Colorado. And we hope we meet you, by the way. Skip from Fraser Park, California. And Skip from Fraser Park, California. I wonder if that's the Skip we know. If it is, hello, Skip. And if it's not the Skip we know, hello anyway, Skip.
Yes. Charles from Sayreville, New Jersey. Sayreville.
Sayreville, New Jersey. Barbara from Abbotsford, British Columbia.
Jeff from Cary, North Carolina. Catherine from Houston, Texas.
Greg from Boulder, Colorado. Margaret from Town and Count, Missouri.
No, M.O. Is that not Montana?
Where's M.O., Yvonne? Missouri. I was right. Van from Wilmington, Delaware. Wilmington.
Is that where the vice president
the vice president is from there. Jeffrey from LaPorte, Pennsylvania. LaPorte. Another person, James from Overland Park, Kansas. I don't know if that's the same person from Overland Park. I have a very good friend from Overland Park. I have been to Overland Park.
But I've never been to me. Francis from Manhattan, Illinois. Barbara from San Ramon, California. Margaret from Town and Count, Missouri. And Margaret again from Missouri.
Thank you very much, Margaret.
Yeah, Laura from Chadsford, Pennsylvania.
Margaret again from Town Court. Count.
She's been a busy girl.
She has. She's
Emily
fabulous.
from Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. And Brian from Al Ruwais, Abu Dhabi.
Oh, from Abu Dhabi. And Randy and Kathy from Portland, Oregon. And Bobby, is that how do I say that, Phil? Bobby from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Okay, my throat is now getting dry.
And that's enough for today, and we'll do more of the shout-outs next week. But guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next week we are coming from a secret location. This is a huge week, obviously, for everyone. We're looking forward to being past the election, actually. I have to say, I'm certainly looking forward to that. So we'll talk to you from our secret location next Wednesday. Take care, guys.
Oh, don't forget to listen to all the viruses, because we're going to be doing a little bit of talking about the election, making our predictions, which will inevitably be wrong. So talk to you soon. Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye.